Sundown on April 30th marks the beginning of the festival of Beltane, or May Day, starting on May 1st. And today I'm going to be sharing some ideas for how you may want to honor this time. Hi, welcome to Gently Being. Beltane is a festival to celebrate spring and fertility and that growing strength of the sun. And it's most commonly celebrated from sundown on April 30th to sundown on May 1st. Historically, it's a festival that was celebrated in Ireland, Scotland, and the Isle of Man. The date itself marks the halfway point between the spring equinox and the summer solstice. So you can think of the sun really gaining in strength and becoming, at its most magnificent. The name itself for the festival is derived from Celtic words that mean bright fire. So fire is something that is also very much associated with this time. Some of the themes you may want to keep in mind when you decide how you'd like to honor this festival is that it is a time of growth, fertility, celebrating abundance. It's also a time of light and a heightened sense of psychic abilities. It's also a festival for focusing on love. And lastly, it is a time that was traditionally associated with purification. So those are some of the themes that you want to keep in mind when you decide how you'd like to honor the festival of Beltane, also pronounced Beltane. My first idea for a ritual that has to do with this festival is to have a ritual cleansing for yourself. Again, this is a time associated with purification, so you may want to have a very deep cleansing sort of bath for yourself or shower, or maybe you'll want to have a facial steam that you make for yourself from the herbs and flowers that you like, really cleansing out the past seasons and making yourself fresh for this middle of springtime. Depending on where you live and the type of flowers that may be in bloom, you may want to consider doing a flower fortune. You can kind of think of the most popular one you may remember from where you were younger, where you would pick the petals off a flower and say something like, he or she loves me, he or she loves me not. But I encourage you to be a little more adventurous with how you approach this. You can really do a flower fortune for anything that you're facing at this time or any sort of question you have. Sometimes just doing this sort of activity helps you come to the answer that may be buried deep down, because maybe you'll get a yes or a no depending on the flower, and then it will really strike you how you really feel about that and help maybe guide a path. And again, this is sort of tuning into that heightened sense of psychic abilities that can be associated with this spring festival. This is very much a time to celebrate the outdoors if you can, so why not host a Beltane picnic and try to make foods that really honor and incorporate what's in season where you live. It's a wonderful way to get together while keeping some distance outdoors with those that you love and care about, always remembering to keep in mind the COVID restrictions and recommendations of the community that you live in. Do something daring. Beltane as a festival often would feature some, daring sort of feats and practices with it. So why not think of something that you would like to try that maybe you've been a little hesitant of? It doesn't have to be anything huge, but maybe just challenge yourself, dare yourself to do something new around this time. The Maypole is very much associated with the festival of May Day, and while you may not have a giant pole or a lot of space to have a traditional sort of style Maypole, you may want to consider seeing if you can craft a much smaller one that perhaps you could put as a centerpiece on your table or on your altar if you decide to make one. You can see what kind of ribbons and craft materials you have at home and, be creative and make your own little Maypole that can stay inside your apartment or house. Create an altar space for the festival. Some of the things that are associated with the festival of Beltane are bees, rabbits, frogs, cows, wildflowers, mint, hawthorn, but really maybe look outside for any plants that you may want to bring in to see what's blooming, what's in season. Some of the colors associated with the festival are green, white, brown, pink, and yellow. So you may want to incorporate those colors also into the altar space that you create. Since this is a time, as I mentioned, that has to do with purification and really celebrating the season of spring, I think it could be a fun time to do a sort of shake it off exercise in whatever way that would embody itself best for you. You may just want to dance around a bit and just shake off some of the old sort of cobwebs you still have on from the winter season or the beginning of spring. It may be going for a run if that's something that you really enjoy. Any sort of exercise or activity that lets you shake off what's been holding you down from the start of this year to really embrace this new growth and this time of purification that is this Beltane festival. You may want to create some space and time for a meditation, a prayer, or even just some time for contemplation, and maybe think about what intention you would like to set for the May new moon that will be coming up. Since this is a time of light and greater, psychic visibility or experience, you may get a new drop of insight on something that you want to work towards or work for, or new intention that you'd like to set when the May new moon comes around. And lastly, you may want to make some time and space to reflect on what you've learned. What have you learned about yourself during the start of this year up until this point? What have you learned perhaps about those you loved or the ones around you? Is there new skills that perhaps you learned? While this is a time for celebrating the growth that we see in the world around us, it's really also wonderful to stop and reflect on the growth that you've had yourself and, recognize it, honor it, and celebrate it at this time. And remember, at the start of the video, I mentioned that the word Beltane comes from Celtic words that mean bright fire. So if you're able to, you may want to have a little fire pit outside if you have access to some sort of yard and can do it safely and in a controlled manner. And for all us apartment dwellers, we can always light a candle or two to celebrate that bright fire safely indoors in some way. And you may want to place those candles on your altar or do your meditation near them. If you're able to have a fire safely outside, you may want to do some dancing around it to get that shake off exercise involved. But in any way that you can, you may want to try to incorporate that bright flame into some of your activities and rituals for the festival. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you're going to celebrate Beltane/Beltane or May Day, please leave a comment below and let me know what you're going to be doing. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe below, and hit the bell so you always know when there's a new video. Once again, thank you for spending time with Gently Being.